سعد الدين الحريري رئيسا لمجلس الوزراء.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's top stories. The ministerial committee tasked with drafting the government's policy statement takes off to a promising start that will help the new cabinet. President Michel Aoun holds a meeting with French Foreign Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault and his accompanying delegation at the presidential palace in Babda. And convoys carry opposition fighters out of the last rebel pocket of Aleppo in the final phase of an evacuation, clearing the way for Syria's army. A ministerial committee tasked with drafting the government's policy statement took off to a promising start that will help the cabinet focus on urgent and vital issues such as a new vote law and the country's water, electricity, and waste problems. Shortly after it was set up during the first cabinet meeting chaired by President Michel Aoun at the Babda Palace, the 7-member ministerial committee met under its head. Prime Minister Saad Hariri at the Grand Sarai released statements and said that some ministers following the one-hour meeting indicated that the committee had made major progress in its first meeting towards reaching agreement on any policy statement whose basis the government would seek a vote of confidence from. Interior Minister Nuhad Mashnout said there were no essential contentious points in the deliberations over the government's policy statements. He said they agreed on the main points that will be included in the policy statement. President Michel Aoun held a meeting with French Foreign Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault and his accompanying delegation at the presidential palace in Babda. Ayrault, who arrived Wednesday evening, left the Babda Palace without making any statement. Media reports are saying that Aoun had reiterated during talks with the French diplomat Lebanon's keenness to improve and develop the relations between the two countries. For his part, Ayrault was quoted as saying, France will continue to provide aid for Lebanon. Later, the foreign minister held talks with Prime Minister Saad Hariri, after which he made a statement and said that they will exert efforts that Lebanon is kept away from regional turmoil. According to MTV, Ayrault suggested holding a conference next March of political character to support Lebanon and to be dedicated to tackling the issue of refugees. And so different residents in the country started celebrating. Holidaymakers and visitors are soaking up the festive atmosphere in cities across the country, visiting food markets and admiring Christmas trees, lights, and decorations. The city of Byblos attracted visitors from around the country as well as abroad who all come to see the glittering decorations and stock up on gifts. A resident in Byblos said, honestly, in Byblos we are feeling the Christmas spirit every year because of the huge number of people visiting the city. This is a proud time for us and we will always try to emulate this. In the capital of Beirut, various Christmas shows were organized to entertain children and their families. In October this year, Lebanese parliament elected President Michel Aoun after the post lay vacant for more than 2 years, so Lebanese feel they have a reason to celebrate. The United States denies that an Israeli claim that U.S.-supplied armored vehicles seen being operated by Hezbollah in Syria had been given to the Islamist militia by Lebanon's official army. Last month, footage emerged of Hezbollah fighters operating M113 armored personnel carriers in Syria, where the militia, blacklisted by Washington as a terrorist organization, is fighting in support of Bashar al-Assad. On Wednesday, senior Israeli military officials speaking on condition of anonymity said Israel believes these vehicles were drawn from stock supplied by Washington to the Lebanese armed forces. But in Washington, State Department spokesman John Kirby said U.S. officials have investigated and do not believe that Lebanon has violated its agreement not to transfer on U.S. supplied equipment. Convoys carried opposition fighters out of the last rebel pocket of Aleppo in the final phase of the evacuation, clearing the way for Syria's army to retake the city. The evacuation effort has been hampered in recent days by heavy snowfall and freezing temperatures, leaving evacuees waiting in unheated buses for hours. But aid workers said it appeared to be reaching its end. About 34,000 people have left the one-time opposition stronghold of East Aleppo since last Thursday, including all of the wounded and sick in critical condition. Rebel forces who seized control of East Aleppo in 2012 agreed to withdraw from the bastion after a month-long army offensive that drove them from more than 90% of their former territory. Russia staged a somber memorial ceremony for Andrei Karlov, the Russian ambassador to Turkey, gunned down in Ankara on Monday by a man shouting Allahu Akbar and "Don't forget Aleppo." Russia and Turkey have branded the assassination a failed attempt to derail a rapprochement between Moscow and Ankara, which has seen them cooperate more closely over Syria, where they have backed different sides in the conflict. Diplomats and family members gathered at the Russian Foreign Ministry, a looming Stalin-era skyscraper in central Moscow, to bid farewell to Karlov, who was 62. A uniformed honor guard stood around the open casket in the building's marble-clad lobby as mourners, including Prime Karlov, was a Soviet-trained diplomat who worked in North and South Korea during the 1990s and 2000s and was sent to Turkey in 2013. Coming up next, more world headlines when we return. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching the 1620 o'clock news here on Future Television. German police commandos raided 2 apartments in Berlin's neighborhood of Kreuzberg, but did not find a Tunisian man suspected of involvement in a deadly truck attack. It said investigators believe that Anis Amri may have been in one of the 2 apartments. Police forces had to overpower a man at one of the apartments. It gave no further information, though. Later on Thursday, a spokesman for the German chief federal prosecutor denied a media report saying that there had been 4 arrests in Dortmund of people who had contact with a Tunisian suspect in the Berlin Christmas market attack. 8 people were killed when Taliban suicide bombers stormed the residence of an Afghan lawmaker in the capital of Kabul, officials are saying, after the attackers were gunned down earlier on Thursday following a nearly 10-hour siege. Helmand MP Mir Wali survived the assault with injuries, but 2 of his grandsons and bodyguards were among those killed in the attack, which began on Wednesday evening following a recent lull in violence in Kabul. The Taliban, in a statement, said their suicide bombers raided the house to disrupt an important gathering of officials to address the deteriorating security situation in the lawmaker's southern opium-rich province. In all, 8 civilians and officials were killed, according to Freydoun Obaidi, the chief of Kabul's Police Criminal Investigation Department. Israel is urging the United States to veto a UN Security Council draft resolution calling for an immediate halt to settlement building on occupied land that Palestinians want for a state. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took to Twitter in the dead of night in Israel to make the appeal in a sign of concern that President Barack Obama might take a parting shot at a policy he has long opposed and a right-wing leader with whom he has had a rocky relationship. Egypt circulated the draft on Wednesday evening, and the 15-member council is due to vote at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. The resolution would demand Israel immediately and completely seize all settlement activities in the occupied Palestinian territory, including east of Jerusalem. U.S. Vice President-elect Mike Pence is promising that the Trump administration will support social services. Pence, the governor of Indiana, spoke to reporters as he served food to the homeless at the Wheeler Mission Ministries in Indianapolis. He said that the administration of President-elect Donald Trump would help people that have been left behind in the economy back to work and create jobs and opportunities. The administration would continue to provide the resources for social service organizations that come alongside the most vulnerable citizens. Opponents of Trump fear that his administration could cut federal support for social services, yet Trump has promised to eliminate Obamacare, the government-operated health marketplace that has seen nearly 20 million formerly uninsured Americans signed up for health care. So the weekend at the box office numbers are coming in. Rogue One, a Star Wars story, is dominating the festive box office this year, just like Star Wars The Force Awakens did exactly last year. According to Variety.com, the sci-fi spin-off looks set to add another $125 million to its domestic take over the holiday period. It has already pulled in $323.5 million at the worldwide box office. While the top spot may be a given, a number of new releases are vying for the runner-up positions. Animated movie Sing, video game adaptation Assassin's Creed, and sci-fi thriller Passengers are all eyeing up the number 2 spot. They are expected to bring in $70 million in second place, $40 million taking third, and $30 million and landing in fourth place, respectively. Also landing the theaters over the holiday weekend and expected to secure spots in the box office top 10 are the R-rated comedy starring Bryan Cranston and James Franco, Why Him?, with a take of $15 million, and the drama Fences as well, with actor-director Denzel Washington and Viola Davis. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. A ministerial committee tasked with drafting the government's policy statement takes off to a promising start that will help the new cabinet. President Michel Aoun holds a meeting with French Foreign Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault and his accompanying delegation at the presidential palace in Babda. And convoys carry opposition fighters out of the last rebel pocket of Aleppo in the final phase of the evacuation, clearing the way for Syria's army to retake the city. Those are your Thursday headlines live on Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal signing off. Have a good one.
سعد الدين الحريري رئيسا لمجلس الوزراء.